I still remember the day everything started falling apart like it was yesterday, except honestly it felt like my whole world was crumbling. Jessica, my best friend since forever, was supposed to be cruising through junior year like the star she really was. She was this powerhouse on the track team, one of those rare kids who could somehow balance a social life, school, and national competitions, all while making it look effortless. But then she gets that huge break, an out-of-state recruitment offer that most of us could only dream about. It was like this golden ticket away from the small-town drama that was already starting to gnaw at the edges of our friendship circle. We were just three: Jessica, me, and our other close friend Maddie, always sticking together like glue through the messy halls of our Texas high school. But then something shifted. I remember hearing the first whisper while we were walking down the hallway between classes. It was quiet at first, like maybe I imagined it, but then the rumors started spreading faster than wildfire. The worst rumor, the one no one wanted to say out loud but everyone whispered behind her back, was that Jessica had an abortion during one of her trips out of state. In our town, where church pews and Sunday prayers hold more weight than actual conversations, that rumor was like a death sentence. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Jessica was always responsible, head of her class, captain of the track team, and someone who had her future planned out clear as day. I tried everything I could, talking to other friends, even confronting people who were spreading the lies, but it felt like I was shouting into a void. The rumor didn't just stick to that one horrible claim. It blossomed into more vicious attacks on her character. They said she was reckless, that she was trouble, and that if she was capable of something like that, what else could she be hiding? It was as if the whole school suddenly decided to rewrite the story about Jessica without even knowing her. What hurt the most was how quickly people started to distance themselves from her. Teachers looked at her with a mix of pity and suspicion. Friends who used to laugh at her jokes and cheer for her at meets now avoided sitting near her in the cafeteria. I caught myself holding my breath, wondering if someday soon I'd be completely cut off too. And then the day came when Jessica announced she was graduating early. She told me it was because she wanted to get out before the gossip destroyed her completely. Truth is, I think she just needed to escape the judgment, the whispers, and the cold shoulders that made every day feel like walking through a minefield. When she left, it wasn't just the halls that felt empty. It was like half of my world disappeared overnight. Sure, Summer, you've got to be strong, people said. But they didn't understand how isolating it was watching someone you love get swallowed up by rumors and then vanish without a trace. After she left, the toxicity didn't vanish. It just moved on, turning its attention to anyone who dared to get too close to her, especially me. And that's when things took a turn I wasn't expecting. One afternoon I was by the lockers trying to keep my head down, when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. It wasn't just idle gossip anymore. I heard the exact words, the names, and the sharp tone that made it clear who planted those poison seeds about Jessica. At that moment, it hit me that if I wanted any chance of finding peace or maybe even getting some justice, I had to stop running from the toxicity and start digging into where it really came from. Little did I know, uncovering the truth would pull me deeper into the silent battles hidden beneath the surface of our high school. I still remember the exact moment when everything started to click into place for me. I was in the library trying to drown out the noise of the halls and the relentless whispers that followed me everywhere like a shadow. It was supposed to be a quiet space to focus, but as usual, the gossip found its way in. I was shelving some books near the back, trying to keep my head down, when I caught a snippet of a conversation between two girls from the cheerleading squad. They were sitting close enough that their hushed tones traveled to my ears, though they thought they were being discreet. Honestly, you think anyone'd believe it if Tammy hadn't started it? She's so perfect, but you know she's just bitter inside, one girl said. Yeah, after what Jessica did to her last year. I swear Tammy's been dying to get back at her. Stop pretending like she's all sweet and innocent, the other replied. I froze. It was the first real lead I'd had since Jessica had disappeared from school like a ghost, the rumors relentlessly chasing her away. Tammy, the model Christian, the perfect girlfriend to the star quarterback, was behind all this? It didn't make sense on the surface. Tammy seemed untouchable, a stereotype of high school perfection, smiling in church on Sundays and strutting through the halls like she owned the place. But envy has a way of showing itself beneath even the prettiest masks. I took a deep breath, trying not to let my heart race. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but this was the first solid piece of the puzzle I'd found. The rumors about Jessica weren't random. They were calculated, and Tammy was the epicenter. Later that day, by sheer luck or maybe just fate, I ran into Sarah, one of Tammy's lesser cronies who usually floated in Tammy's orbit but didn't get the front row spotlight. I pulled her aside when we were both alone near the bleachers, and under the pretense of casual conversation, I brought up Jessica's name. At first, Sarah was cagey, twirling her hair nervously like she was afraid to say too much. But I could tell she wanted to talk. Finally, she blurted out, "Tammy, she's not as perfect as everyone thinks. Jessica didn't do anything wrong. Tammy's just jealous, yeah, jealous and kind of cruel too. You know that thing that happened last year? When Jessica shut Tammy down after Tammy tried to ask her out or whatever. Tammy never got over it. Jealous?" My mind kept circling back to that word. Tammy, the queen of the school's social scene. Bitter because Jessica, of all people, had rejected her? It was a twisted motive, but it made this personal, far beyond the usual high school drama. I remember sitting in my room that night, my head spinning. Part of me wanted to confront Tammy directly. I imagined walking into her house, telling her family what kind of person she really was, unraveling the perfect little image she had built for them to see. But something held me back. I knew that would be too messy, too confrontational, and likely blow up in my face. Tammy had that polished act, that facade she never let slip. I needed to be smarter than that, more subtle. The weight of it all was sinking in. Jessica gone, the rumors spreading like wildfire, and Tammy pulling the strings without anyone suspecting a thing. It was like a chess game, and finally I'd found the kingpin. But catching her wasn't enough. I had to make sure this silent battle had a purpose beyond just exposing her. I wanted to make her world uncomfortable enough to crack that perfect image she desperately clung to. That's when I decided to get help from someone I never thought I'd turn to, my sister. Together we could think of a way to send a message. Something quiet and indirect but powerful in what it conveyed. Something that would unsettle Tammy in the only way she really cared about, her rigid sense of control and her carefully crafted reputation. I didn't know yet exactly how this would unfold, or what consequences it would bring. But at that moment I felt something shift inside me. The fire to fight back in a way that didn't just scream at the world but whispered secrets into it. And that's how the next phase of this all started. With a plan to deliver a message so discreet, so unlike anything Tammy expected, it would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and the life she owned. I'll never forget the day I slipped that little white paper bag into Tammy's backpack. It wasn't aggressive or loud, just quiet, calculated. I remember standing by my locker, pretending to rummage through my books while I tucked the bag right into the side pocket where I knew she wouldn't notice it until much later. Inside were condoms and some printed birth control information I'd carefully copied from a clinic's website. My mind was racing, but honestly I felt calm, almost steady in a way I hadn't felt since all of this started. For so long, Tammy had been this untouchable force at school. Her whole reputation built on being the perfect girl with the perfect life. She'd made Jessica's life a living hell. And I'd sat on the sidelines, unsure how to fight back without sinking to her level. But now I was doing something subtle, something that would speak louder than yelling or drama. I wanted her to understand what it felt like to have a secret, a shame, a consequence stack up against her in a way she couldn't easily brush off. Over the next few days, the change was slow but unmistakable. Tammy started missing the usual parties and hangouts that she'd never have skipped before. I heard whispers in the hallways about her mom finding those things, and how Tammy was grounded like never before. The chatter was quiet but vicious, like a ripple turning into a wave. The girl who once ruled senior year was suddenly shrinking, her social fortress crumbling piece by piece. What really struck me was how Tammy shut down completely. She stopped volunteering for cheerleading and stopped showing up for club meetings, fading out of school like a ghost. People I thought were her friends turned their backs too, like they were waiting to see if she would just disappear altogether. I remember standing in the cafeteria one afternoon watching her sit alone, hunched over her tray, and for the first time feeling a twinge of, well, it wasn't exactly satisfaction. Maybe it was just the bitter taste of things coming full circle. But it wasn't just about social fallout. Word spread that Tammy's mother was furious, that she'd canceled a whole plan for Tammy's college visits, and that her dream of a certain prestigious university was now off the table. It hit me then that what I was doing wasn't only about revenge. It was about justice. About making sure Tammy felt the same disruption Jessica had endured. Someone had to hold her accountable for the damage she caused. And if the adults around her weren't going to step in, then maybe she had to learn the hard way. I stayed silent through all of it. No triumphant posts, no gloating messages. Just quiet satisfaction in watching the game finally shift. Of course, there were moments I questioned myself, wondered if I'd taken it too far or if this kind of quiet retaliation was really the right path. But when I saw Tammy's world unravel like that, I knew she'd gotten a taste of what cruelty feels like from the inside. It was in those moments of reflection that I realized something else. The cost of high school shadow stretches far beyond the halls and the rumors. It lingers, it shapes futures, it changes the direction of lives. Tammy's fall from grace wasn't just about payback. It was a painful lesson etched into both of our stories, and one I wasn't sure we'd ever fully recover from. Years later, I never expected to see Tammy again, but when I did, it was like a door opening on all those silent battles we'd fought without words. The look in her eyes spoke volumes, about the weight she'd carried, the regret she'd buried, and maybe even a flicker of understanding. That encounter made me realize this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The scars, the consequences, the quiet reckoning. They lasted much longer than any rumor or gossip ever could. And suddenly I felt the pull to find some kind of closure. But I also knew the path to that wasn't going to be easy. I hadn't planned on going back to my hometown that summer. After everything with high school, the rumors, Jessica leaving, the whole mess, I thought maybe it was better to just keep those memories locked away, buried beneath whatever new life I could carve out. But life has a way of pulling you back whether you're ready or not. So there I was wandering the main street, the same cracked sidewalks, the familiar strip mall where we used to hang out after school. The years had done something to the place. It felt smaller somehow, quieter. It was just a random impulse that made me push open the door to that little diner we used to go to on Friday nights. And then I saw her. Tammy. Standing behind the counter wearing that faded apron, hair pulled back too tightly, like it had been for years. She was taking orders with this practiced smile, but the first thing I noticed was the heaviness in her eyes. She didn't look up when the door chimed. It was like she was just going through the motions, her mind somewhere else entirely. I remember standing frozen for a second, not sure whether I wanted to say something or just turn around and leave. Because honestly, part of me had imagined a very different ending for Tammy. When we were seniors, she acted like she had it all planned out. Going to college, big dreams, like she was going to escape that small town and everyone who ever really saw her for what she was beneath all the gossip and laziest labels. But here she was looking stuck. Not angry or fierce, just tired and maybe a little defeated. I walked up and ordered a coffee, pretending everything was normal, though my heart was pounding. When she finally glanced over, it was like all the years between us squeezed into that single moment. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. Just a brief flicker of recognition. "Summer," she said quietly. I nodded, figuring the truth was better than the awkward silence. "I didn't expect to see you here." There was a pause, and I could almost hear the echo of the fights we'd had, the names exchanged, the cold silences that followed. Tammy took a breath, set down the coffee cup and said, "Me neither." We both knew the real story wasn't between us anymore. It was in all the shadows that years of high school cruelty had left behind. I thought about Jessica, about the way everything had spiraled before she left town, the ways we all got caught in this web of gossip and hatred that none of us fully understood at the time. For Tammy, this job was probably just survival, a far cry from the future she talked about with such certainty back then. I felt this sting like a mix of vindication for how things had turned out and a deep, complicated sadness. Because nobody wins in those silent battles. We all lose pieces of ourselves, and sometimes it takes years to see what's really left behind. I wanted to say something more, maybe reach out, but I knew some distances don't bend. Instead, I smiled gently, said goodbye, and stepped back out into the heat of that Texas afternoon. As I walked away, I kept thinking about how the wounds from those years never really fade. They just change shape, hidden behind the faces people show the world. And for every story that ends like mine, there are so many others. Quiet battles fought in halls and hearts no one sees. I realized then that high school cruelty isn't just a phase or a bad memory. It's a cost that follows us long after the lockers are empty. And that's when it hit me. The true price of those invisible scars isn't just about who got hurt back then. It's about what we carry forward, the secrets we bury, and the stories left untold.